Hello and welcome to the Long Talk here on New Zealand Sports Radio. And we are going to go back into the virtual world. This is a virtual radio station, and we're going to talk about virtual sports as well with Sean Callanan. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
Now, how did you get into sport in the first place? Did you? What's your first sporting memory?
Well, that's going back. That's going back a long way. I guess my first sporting memory is growing up in country Victoria. Probably going down to a local footy club, AFL Aussie rules, or maybe even playing cricket. I was a young leg spin bowler in my teenage years, so they're probably my early years of sport. But as far as getting into the sports business is concerned, I started Sports Geek, my business, my sports digital agency, 11 years ago. Before that, I was a regular geek. I was a coder and developer across multiple industries, but I was a frustrated sports fan. So I sort of found a space in the world of sport in helping sports teams understand the digital space and understand the opportunities that digital offers across social media. And so for the past 11 years or so, I've been working on club side and leagues and athletes in helping them build out their digital fan bases.
But from an actual sort of playing point of view, did you just play at school, or did you actually play to any kind of rep level? Or
no, I didn't. I didn't play at any sort of rep level. Played at school. Took a few wickets in school cricket. Played basketball until I tore my Achilles in my 30s. But yeah, never rose to any great heights. So found myself being a sports fan pretty early on.
But you talk about, say, that you're on that you found a sports geek, but before that you did some sports TV production. You got involved with the Bulldogs on doing a bit of TV, doing a bit of online stuff as well.
Yep.
So whilst you might have been a bit of a developer at times, you've been involved in this digital world for quite a long time. You're actually probably one of the first people into that kind of. Back in '98. I mean, wow, that's
Yeah,
you were early, weren't you?
Yeah, I was dabbling in sport, I guess, on a few different things, on some TV projects, and a few other pieces. And it wasn't until I guess I made the leap to start Sports Geek and sort of started evangelizing digital. I thought I'd be there, sort of playing that same coder developer role, but the rise of the digital platforms, especially from a social media point of view, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the like, I sort of found my niche there in helping the sports teams. And in that time, we've seen digital departments around sporting bodies grow and around sporting teams grow, and the audiences grow, and the opportunities in that space grow. And so that's where I've sort of found myself, and really proud that I've been able to help, I guess, the sports digital industry overall grow, not only here in Australia and New Zealand, but also been lucky enough to work and speak at some conferences in the US and in the UK.
And when we're talking about sports digitally, we're talking about real sports, as in that happens out on the grass, on the pitch, and helping large organisations like NRL teams, AFL, rugby,
Correct.
cricket, that kind of stuff. So, what about the gaming side of things? Did you? What was the first computer game you remember? For me, my first one was probably Donkey Kong. Was my first one I can remember. So that shows you my age.
No, I remember Donkey Kong, and I think I probably still got a Donkey Kong device somewhere at home. Yeah, so I guess that was my early gaming. I've never. I won't put my hand up to say I was a massive gamer. I played a little bit over the years, but I was never a massive gamer. But I guess being in the sports space, looking at digital fans and that expansion of how we engage different audiences, the world of sport was constantly looking over its shoulder as where the fans were going, and they were looking over at gaming and esports as, is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? The debate of, is it a sport? Those kind of things. I think it is a sport. If you're watching people perform and compete, and other people are watching it, that to me, that's a sport. And so that was sort of something over the past 4 or 5 years. I've sort of been looking at the industry and gaming and esports overall as, is it a threat or an opportunity? And I definitely saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. Let's be honest. Some teams like, say, Barcelona have got a FIFA esports team as well as a football team, and they also have a basketball team and a few other teams as well. And that's how the sort of European setup is. The NBA is going down a similar route. I'm not sure if I think they were setting up this year, weren't they, with having
NBA
teams.
2K is actually entering year 3.
Oh, year 3 now.
Yeah, NBA 2K League. Yeah, so a bunch of the teams have got their own NBA 2K team. It sort of runs in conjunction with and sort of has some overlap. There'll be people that watch the NBA, play 2K, and then they'll also watch 2K League.
So so it's definitely seen as, I say, some people are definitely seeing it as an opportunity. Other sports like rugby have been further behind the curve on this one, even though Augustin Pichot, I mean, even used it as part of his election campaign for the chairmanship that he came short against recently, but about having even a digital department or an innovation department in the actual central governance team. Have people like FIFA or the NBA? Do they? I think they pretty much outsource it, don't they? They don't have an in-house development.
Yeah. So what we're sort of seeing is, I guess, when we're seeing sports and esports crossover, there's the sports that have a game that is a simulator or very much like the game that you watch and what you play. So, that's where FIFA has done quite well. FIFA is a popular video game. NBA 2K is a popular video game amongst the fans. Definitely in motorsport, a lot of the motorsport, whether it's the full sim racing or the arcade style games, they translate very well with the audience of that sport. But there are sports that don't have games that can effectively replicate the game, and they're the ones that are, I guess, trying to figure out how they enter this space of gaming and esports. And what we have seen is some sports jump in to other titles, whether they be League of Legends, Call of Duty, Overwatch, those kind of things, and they're really, I guess, entering the space more on the point of view of what does a different audience look like? How can we go about commercializing that audience? That kind of thing. So over in this market, the Adelaide Football Club purchased an esports team. It has a League of Legends team. Now, a League of Legends fan or a League of Legends player is by no means related to the AFL as a sport, and so it's really just a matter of building out that that bigger club, like you said, that we've seen with big European football clubs jumping into different sports. We are seeing sports starting to look at, I guess, esports and gaming in that same way. You can have a football club, a basketball club, a netball club, and an esports club in multiple titles.
So we talk about esports as though it's one thing.
Yeah.
Now, from my limited experience, to me, it doesn't look like one thing. It looks like it's a bit like kind of the saying sport,
Correct.
and that it's a mishmash, not only of different styles of games, but then I'm not kind of aware of any proper or any kind of any organization. It's also a bit of a mixture of things, with lots of people seeing an opportunity and trying to grab a piece of the pie. First off, from the gaming side, we've talked now about the games, the sports simulation games. You've touched on a few titles there, but
yep.
So we have the overhead tactical games. Is that the right kind of term for it?
So, I mean, I guess the first thing is you make a good point. When people are talking esports, it is exactly the same as saying professional sports, right? So, the way that I describe it, we have sport overall. You or I, current restrictions withstanding, can go and throw a ball around in a park, and we can be playing rugby, or we can have a kick of a ball, or we can be playing football. But professional sports are the very top, where we have professionals playing and people watching, whether that's the A League or the NRL or the EPL or the NFL. So that's what I term as professional sports. And so
so from a kind of terminology point of view, folks, that's the difference between gaming and esports, and
Correct.
gamers and esports athletes.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And I guess then the next piece is, in the same way that there are many sports professionally, there are many titles that that become esports. So not all titles become esports. If it's just a game that you play and you can't play against someone, it's never going to become an esport. And so what we have seen is some particular titles like League of Legends, which is 5v5 capture the flag style um, game, or Fortnite is starting to become an esport where it's 100 people in and the last person standing wins. Those kind of things. We're seeing Rocket League. We're seeing first-person shooters like Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, those kind of things. They're what have become I guess the top tier esports, and we're starting to see some formation of some rigor around teams and franchises and leagues that sort of, to a certain degree, simulate what we know in real sport. But it's still in its relative infancy in, I guess, organisation. There's not the federated structure that we see in sport. There is no governing body that oversees everything, because that's really the publisher, the person who creates the game. They own so much of the ecosystem. We don't have to hire courts. We don't have to get equipment. All of these things, all of that is owned by the publisher. So it's a vastly different relationship than, say, if we looked at football and FIFA and the leagues and the national bodies and all of that kind of stuff. It's vastly different in the world of esports.
Well, so you don't need to buy anything. A gaming setup it doesn't come cheap, does it? If you want to take part, I mean, you have a team. We'll get onto that in a second. But
yep.
to kit up a player, now your guys play
yep.
League of Legends. I don't know if the kit, obviously the kit will be different for a motorsport simulator, but I guess between the other games, I don't know if it's that different. But how much does it cost, or for like the computer, the headset? Well, I guess what else do you need?
Yeah,
to be
I guess if I take League of Legends, it's so different games require different I guess capabilities from a PC point of view. So League of Legends is primarily a PC game. It's one of the most popular in the world. 110 million people play it on a monthly basis. It's actually got a really low bar in terms of what PCs you need. Because they want it to be widely available and widely used. So it does come down to getting a good monitor and having a appropriate internet speed so you can play. And funnily enough, as a developer on PCs 15 years ago, the price of PCs haven't changed. Just there's more power in every box these days. So I think 15 years ago, I was telling people if you wanted to buy a PC, you can spend about $3,000 and you'll get a pretty good PC. It's still roughly around the same. So, but most of the players who find themselves rising up the ranks have a PC. They're playing on a PC. They're playing the game on a regular basis, and they're normally got enough to rise up the ranks and rise up the ladder to then be identified by professional teams.
Okay, so you find you don't need to kit out your players that you hire with all that kit?
Oh, well, it all depends on how your team's set up. Like we've got a couple of our players that are, our players are playing from home, and if their computer and their setup isn't ready for practice, and because they do a lot of their practice games and training at home, yeah, we've got them a PC. But again, it's pretty much most of them have a PC that they're already running with, because that's how they've got here in the first place.
Yeah, but it would cost them what, about $3,000 for a PC?
Yeah, about $3 or $4 grand is probably a decent investment in a gaming PC. Like I said, if you want to play other games, you might want to look at upgrading your graphics cards and the like to deal with the heavy graphics processing that some games have. But yeah, in the case of League of Legends, they sort of brag that it can pretty much run on any computer, really low end PCs to allow multiple people to play.
Okay, so it can be so there is a barrier to entry, but it's not a crazy barrier.
No, if you're a gamer and you've got a PC, you can play a lot of the games that are available.
Now, obviously, we have things like Xboxes and PlayStation stuff. Can you be an e-gamer using those platforms, or do you have to be on a PC?
Oh no, you have to. I mean, there might be gamers out there watching now that'll be shaking their heads, because if you're a real true gamer, you've got to have a PC.
Oh, sorry, not e-gamer. I shouldn't say e-gamers. It's the wrong term.
No,
Sorry,
that's
any
all right.
athlete.
There is a little bit of there is I guess a divide between console gamers and PC gamers. There are titles like Fortnite that do cross over, where they gamers will be using a PlayStation or an Xbox, those kind of things. Um, but it does seem that the very top tier end up on a PC and a PC gamer. But that's again that hasn't stopped, and there are a lot of titles that are very much console driven, and they're very much that's the space that they play in.
But from a competitive athlete point of view, we're talking PCs.
Pretty much.
So looking at actually, so you mentioned those first shooters. You said Rocket League. So Rocket League that's the
that's the cars
football,
bashing around
football
soccer
cars,
balls,
right?
yeah. It's exactly, I mean, if you see it, it's easy to understand. It's three, you've got three different types of wacky cars that are pushing balls around and trying to score goals. So very simple premise, very simple to learn. Take some mechanics and things like that to get better at it. But it's very it's very easy to watch. Appeals to a younger demographic. You can see why it has become an esport.
And that's well, they had a bit of controversy recently, didn't they, with some players not being or not taking restarts and getting involved and sort of throwing their rage quitting or match fixing,
there was
depending
some
on how you want to
issues
do it.
recently, but it's just, I guess it's the same issues that sport has had previously, and I guess it's as more scrutiny and attention is coming on, I guess, esports and gaming, things like sports integrity and those kind of things will come into play for sports.
Yeah, and it is having to grow up very quickly, isn't it? Because you've been in you've had a team for about 2 years now.
Yep.
Or coming up to 2 years. But I guess from a public consciousness point of view, that's probably the sort of where it's it's probably been coming into public consciousness about a couple of years, even though you have had professional esports stars for probably a decade or so now, I think.
Yep.
And but there is now that you can. I mean, Rocket League now, I believe, is you can gamble on it with the TAB, and there's other things. So that what's the word? That maturation process is happening very fast at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is more attention brought to esports as things like sports gambling is allowed, and obviously there's some checks and balances there that all sports need to look at. So I guess that has accelerated it, and I guess the attention of more fans. There's a lot of live sports has been shut down, and esports has been able to continue. Has just probably accelerated what was already happening anyway.
So in the League of Legends space, because that's
Yep.
the where you've got your team, and the team, as you can see on your jersey, there, your
Yep.
jacket there. So Gravitas
Yep.
is the team that you have. So what league do they play in?
So Gravitas made their debut in January 2018. We play in the Oceanic Pro League. So that is a Riot Games League of Legends league. It has 8 teams in that league that represent Australia and New Zealand. So players can be coming from that pool. It's played over two seasons for the year, 2 10-week seasons. We've just wrapped up Split 1 just a couple of weeks ago with Legacy taking out the title. And Split 2 is going to start in early June. And as I said before, normally the games are played in a studio out of Sydney on a Friday and Saturday night. But with the coronavirus and the lockdown and those kind of things, we're able to move the production from a studio-based production to a purely online league. So all the players, all the broadcasters, the referees, and everybody were dialed in online, and the broadcast moved from that in just a mere 10 days. So we're able to keep the sport going and finish the season.
Okay, so all right. So normally the teams travel to Sydney, stay there for the 10 weeks, or travel home each week.
Yeah. So the teams, I mean, our team is based in Sydney. So the guys would go into the studio there at Piermont, and play the game in 2 separate rooms. With 5 computers in each room, and have their setup. They bring in their own. They've got their own keyboard and mouse set up. for each game. So that's what they train on. That's what they're familiar with. And then the games happen at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And it's broadcast on Twitch and YouTube.
Okay, so the league you're involved in has two separate rooms. It's not in an auditorium like we've seen some of the leagues are set up in.
No, yeah, so they're in two separate rooms. I guess again from competitive integrity and those kind of things. So there's a lot of things there that all the players will be connected by a headset like this one,
Yep.
and they'll be talking during the game. You don't want the other team hearing, I guess, the shot calling and the plans of the team. So even if it is on stage, which does happen at the end of the year, those types of things, you can't have the teams hearing each other or being able to see different parts of the map that they normally couldn't see in a game. So, yeah, when it's a studio game, they're in two separate studios. They can't hear one another, and it creates the best competitive game.
So you have a squad of 7 players that makes and as you say, you have five players in an actual competing at a time. So that's in case someone gets sick, and also to drive competitiveness.
Yeah, so so this season we've gone with a bigger squad, partly because the guys are based in Sydney. Some of them are studying, working when they can, and when they're not in lockdown. And so we wanted to, I guess, give different opportunities, both develop players, and also give the coaches some flexibility in the lineup. So make it a little bit harder to plan for. And so we tried that, split one. Unfortunately, we just missed out in the playoffs, but the guys performed quite well considering it was a pretty inexperienced lineup when we started the year.
So how long do they get contracts for? Do you contract them for the year, for a 5-year contract? I mean, what's the how
so
does
at
that
the
work?
moment it's a year-to-year contract. We can sign guys for up to 2 years, but early on, and the league is still developing. So we signed the guys for the year, and it's a matter of them performing both in practice and on stage to keep playing.
And how much ballpark can players earn in that league?
I'm not. I mean, it varies. I mean, it varies from team to team. At the moment, players effectively can be a part-time job. Effectively, it's like 20 weeks. I probably liken it to probably semi-professional or maybe some of the lower league football and basketball kind of things. What we've done in year 2 is tied a lot of what our players do to, I guess, the success of the business overall. So, do we get sponsors in? Do we sell more memberships? Those kind of things, and so the players can share in the upside as Gravitas grows. But it's still developing. It again doesn't have the rigor of an A League or an NBL and those kind of things that have salary caps and league deals and revenue sharing and those kind of things. It's still developing at this stage.
Okay. Now, I was talking with an esports reporter who said that some gamers, or sorry, some athletes will earn more from their streaming themselves, streaming their practices, than they actually earn from if they don't win a tournament, kind of thing. Do your athletes have sort of strong brands themselves and also personal brands as well as the team brand?
Again, that's a developing space, but streaming is definitely something that's very much synonymous with gaming. So for those who don't know, streaming is a professional gamer or professional content creator playing a game, interacting with the audience, building out their brand, and it definitely is an avenue for both esports as an industry to reach and engage with fans. So as the players grow their own digital presence, which has pretty much happened in sport, as players have built out their own digital audiences, that will be more valuable to teams and will be another way for sponsors to connect with fans. So it's our guys. I'm doing a lot of encouraging and also training that I've done with professional athletes with my guys to say, how can you engage on Twitter? How can you use platforms like Instagram? And then also, how can you engage your fans using platforms like Twitch for streaming?
Cool. So this is so the league you're in at the moment is Australia, New Zealand. Is there a way of sort of winning that league and getting promotion to say an Asia Pac or a World League, or is that just how this one's set up and it's separate from
No,
other
that's
leagues?
I guess that's the carrot. If you win either split one or split two, you as the Australian or the Oceanic representative, you get invited to an international tournament. So the carrot for split one is MSI, which is the mid-season invitational, and the carrot for split two is the World Championships. So last year the World Championships were held in Paris. This year, all things being equal, they'll be held in China. And so that is the carrot, and I guess that's one of the unique things about esports. If Gravitas was a basketball club, there's no chance that they were ever going to be playing the Los Angeles Lakers. But if we were to win the OPL, there's every chance we could play a top flight League of Legends team out of Europe or Korea or China or North America. So it truly makes the sport global.
And those World Championships, League of Legends, that's like the biggest esports audience.
They're the ones you hear the big numbers for, and
yep.
2 years ago they were 30,000 people at the arena and millions of people watching online, and you know again, not quite sure how it's going to run this year, and the plans are that it'll still be happening in China in October, but we live in uncertain times.
We do, but we're still talking hundreds of millions on viewers online, though. Whatever,
well, it's
whichever
just more
way it
about
goes.
the logistics of, I guess,
Yep.
moving the players to a location where they can play more than anything else. But yeah, really hopeful that the World Champs do come off.
So, all right, so you're just one step away from that. That's not far, really.
No, well, that's the thing. So, unfortunately, the Melbourne Esports Open for this year, 2020, has been postponed. With the current, it would normally take place in August, but last year, even though we didn't make the grand final for the OPL, it was really exciting to see one of our players on the stage before playing in a warm up game before the grand final. So for myself as a team owner, to see a Gravitas player on the same stage that Roger Federer and big sporting moments have happened on that stage, it was pretty humbling, and hopefully we'll see Gravitas on the world stage some time down the track.
Cool. Well, so what kind of audience is this? Is the Oceania League building sort of gathering now in sort of split one for a game?
Yeah, so it's it's got a bump recently with the lockdown, but the audience overall is probably 16 to 24, maybe even a little bit maybe even a little bit older. League of Legends is actually an old title. It's been around for 10 years now, so we've seen people grow up playing it, and now they're not playing it as often, so they're watching the game. And then we have seen 60, 70,000 people be watching the games online on a Friday and Saturday, and so that's a mix. And then we've actually seen some of the big spikes around the finals, as more of the world is looking for something live to watch. We actually had six figures, over 100,000 people watching the playoffs, and that was a mix of the Oceanic audience, but then also people watching internationally. So, we're hopeful that some of that audience sticks around when all sport comes back and we've got more choice. But that is the opportunity that we've got this audience that's growing up playing the game, then following it as an esport. I'm really excited of what esports will look like in 10 years' time when we migrate this audience that is a 16, 17-year-old. That's the games that they're playing. What are they going to look like? Maybe esports is going to be their first choice of content that they watch.
And that's, you make a very good point there. There was a sort of stat saying that the Super Rugby fans, you're 6% more likely to be a Super Rugby fan if you have grown up playing rugby.
Yep.
So if you do play something, you're much more likely to become a fan of it in the future, and hence, a title that can last for a long time, keep updating itself, keep itself relevant.
Yep.
Has got a real chance of building that audience over time. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to learn about the esports environment, particularly the situation with League of Legends here in Oceania or in Australia and New Zealand. I guess we also didn't forgot that you also have a bit. I've seen a feeder team into this as well, where people can other people can sort of learn to try and grow into a professional team. So it's not like you guys are so Gravitas aren't at the basement level. There's a number of levels beneath that as well.
Yep.
That's building all up.
Our Gravitas Academy team will kick off in a couple of weeks' time, and like you said, that's the Challenger Series that supports the OPL. So that's where potentially the next level stars will be found, and that's where we actually found a couple of guys that play for our OPL roster right now. They were playing OCS last year, so we'll be using that to develop players and potentially maybe see them on the big stages.
Oh, just finally, what kind of age are your players?
So my players, our youngest player turned 18 during Split 1. Nathan Puma, he's our youngest, and I think our oldest is 22 or 23. So they do joke that when you hit 24, you're old. But as someone who's far older than 24, I quickly correct them that 24 is not old. So, but that's sort of the age range of the professional players.
Because wasn't the winner of was it the Fortnite or something was like 16 or 14 or something around that. So
that is the case. You know, there is younger players in a game like Fortnite. In our case, players have to be over 16 to at least play professionally. So
right, cool. Well, I say thank you very much for your time. You do have an esports podcast, so please let us know where people can get their weekly or frequent updates on esports.
Yeah, so I've got a podcast around my business, Sports Geek, around the world of sports and digital. Because I've got an esports team, there's obviously a bit of a sprinkling of esports, but it gives you a bit of behind the scenes of the world of sport and the business of sport and how it operates. Lucky enough to interview people both here in Australia, New Zealand, and had a few guests from the US and the UK and Europe. So you can find that on all good podcasting platforms, Sports Geek. And then if you want to follow Gravitas, you can go to gravitas.gg to check out all things Gravitas. Our second season will start in early June.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had two podcasts. And you had the Sports Geek one. I thought you also had a, but you do YouTube updates on that Gravitas site, don't you? So video updates. Yep.
Definitely do. Yeah. So all things. Yeah. Look, Google Sports Geek or my name's Sean Callanan, and you'll find plenty of information and content around sports and esports.
And support Gravitas, the Orange Machine.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, everybody, for watching or for dialing into this the long talk interview. Don't forget to like the Facebook page for more long form interviews with sports players, administrators, coaches, and other people who are involved and owners now around the sport. If you prefer to listen rather than watch, then search for New Zealand Sports Radio on iCast, iTunes, Spotify, your favorite podcatchers. We're out there. Thank you very much for watching, and look out for the next version of The Long Talk.